The range at Quantico had seen every kind of shooter the Corps could produce, but nobody there had seen anything like the morning Mia Torres walked up to the firing line. The instructors called it Range 400, the last test before graduation, the place where careers were made or quietly ended. 3 targets stood at 900 meters, arranged in a shallow triangle behind a curtain of heat shimmer, and for 2 straight days, the top marksman in the class had failed to touch even one of them cleanly. Wind kept shifting without warning. The rangemaster had rigged it that way on purpose. A final gut check before these Marines were certified as snipers. Gunnery Sergeant Hale had run this course for 11 years. And he liked to say the desert taught humility faster than any drill instructor ever could. He watched 3 of his best students, men who had shot expert since boot camp, walk off that line with their confidence in pieces. One young corporal, Dawson, sat down in the dirt afterward and just stared at his rifle like it had betrayed him. Hale didn't say much. He never did. He simply wrote a number in his logbook and called the next name. Nobody expected the next name to be a woman's, because until 3 years earlier, women hadn't been allowed to try for this particular badge at all. Mia had fought for the chance the way she fought for everything, quietly and completely, without asking anyone's permission to want it. She had grown up on a ranch outside Bozeman, Montana, shooting coyotes off the tree line before she was tall enough to see over the truck bed. Her father, a Marine himself in another life, had taught her that a rifle was not a toy and not a weapon of anger, but an instrument of patience. He used to say that impatience was the only thing that ever missed a shot. He passed when she was 19, and she carried that lesson into the Corps like a second heartbeat. She had scored well in training, well enough to earn a place on this final range, but nobody in the class expected her to succeed where seasoned shooters had failed. Some of the men had made that clear in small, cutting ways, jokes muttered just loud enough to be heard, doubts disguised as concern. Mia never answered any of it. She saved her answers for the trigger. When she settled behind her rifle that morning, the wind was doing what it had done to everyone else, gusting one direction and then reversing without warning, carrying dust that stung the eyes and scattered concentration. Hale watched her take almost 2 full minutes before her first shot, far longer than protocol usually allowed, but he let it run. She wasn't hesitating. She was listening. She watched the heat lines bend over the desert floor, watched a lone piece of tumbleweed catch at the base of the first target, watched dust drift sideways off a ridge 300 meters out. She was reading a language the wind had been speaking all morning, and everyone else had been too rushed to hear it. Her father used to tell her that the desert would talk if you gave it enough silence. She gave it silence now. Then something happened that nobody watching had ever seen before. As she settled her breath for the shot, the wind briefly aligned all 3 targets along a single invisible thread, a corridor of stillness lasting maybe 2 seconds, hidden in the chaos of shifting gusts. Most shooters would have missed it entirely because most shooters were still fighting the wind instead of listening to it. Mia felt it the way her father used to feel a change in weather before the sky ever confirmed it. She exhaled halfway, and in the pause between heartbeats, she fired. The round found the first target dead center, but its momentum after impact sent a secondary fragment of steel spinning into the second target's plate, tripping its fall mechanism. And in a stroke that even the engineers who built the range would call nearly impossible, the ricochet's angle clipped the trigger cable running to the third target, dropping it as well. 3 targets, 1 shot, 1 corridor of silence that existed for 2 seconds in an entire morning of chaos. For a moment, nobody on the line said anything. Then Dawson, the corporal who had sat in the dirt in defeat the day before, started clapping, and the sound spread down the firing line until even Hale allowed himself something close to a smile. The closest thing his students had ever seen to genuine pride. Mia didn't celebrate. She simply lowered her rifle, cleared her weapon, and looked out at the settling dust where 3 fallen targets lay. She thought of her father's voice, low and certain, telling her that impatience was the only thing that ever missed. She had been patient with the wind. She had been patient with the years of doubt. She had been patient with a Corps that took its time deciding she belonged. That evening, when they posted the final scores, Her name sat at the very top. But that was never really the point. The point was that somewhere out past the heat shimmer, a young girl from Montana had finally proven that the quietest people in the room are often the ones who are listening the hardest, and that patience more than power is what finds the target when everyone else has stopped believing it's there.